Hi there, I'm Gabe, and before we get started today, I've got an announcement. Kind of. So, the idea behind the archives was that I'd be able to give out information in the books from the different perspectives of the people in them. And, well, for the most part, I've stuck to that, but it's come to my attention that the Thursday videos tend to be general facts about the world that don't make sense to be presented from a side. Nobody is seriously going to look at something like magical alignments and say, what these people are saying about this biological fact is wrong, and here's how things really is. It's like someone trying to argue that the value of 2 plus the value of 2 equals the value of 4 is just like your opinion, man. So, for that reason, Thursday's videos will now just be general world facts. Will this help me get out videos faster? Well, I've only delayed a couple of Thursday's videos, so nothing will probably change in terms of video production. Moving on, let's talk about Death Knight magic. What is it and how does it work? Well, obviously, it's magic that's used by Death Knights, but we're here for the technicality of how it works. Death Knight magic, which we will call necromancy with a K, is a specific subset of dark magic that is used exclusively by, you guessed it, Death Knights. If you looked at it under a magical microscope, you'd see that the magic itself is composed of equal parts nethermancy, shadow magic, and necromancy, the regular kind, without a K, as well as a dash of vicaromancy, void magic. It is a relatively rare art that is impossible to teach. Literally impossible. Death Knights do not learn how to use necromancy, they just know it, and their bodies are forced to align to this class. Now, there is a sort of proto-necromancy that Death Knight apprentices can learn how to use, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Necromancy is an interesting class of magic because not only does it have its own set of spells, it can also substitute for a wide variety of other magics. So, for example, a Death Knight could use a necromancy fireball spell while never knowing the standard pyromancy fireball spell in life. However, necromancy cannot be substituted for every magic. Light magic and its spells, for example, cannot be replicated by necromancy at all. Similarly, most healing spells do not have a necromancy equivalent, although it does have its own share of healing capabilities. But most other spells and magics can be substituted by a Death Knight using their necromancy. It is the most effective way they get around their hard alignment to the magic. If the one requirement to use necromancy is to be a Death Knight, how do you do that? There are two ways you can become a Death Knight. The first way is that you, as a powerful mage or exceptionally skilled non-mage, make a deal with the devil, Dark Lord, Satan, whatever you want to call him. He gets control of your soul and you get whatever it is you asked for: money, fame, power, eternal life. The catch is that you will suddenly and probably violently die at some point in the near future. Up to about a year, but the time of death is unspecified. Once you die, the Dark Lord uses his power to bind your soul to your corpse and raise you as an undead servant. Your strength and magical prowess magnify, and your body becomes ageless and near indestructible. Your will, however, is no longer entirely your own. Plan B is that you are already a devoted worshipper of the Dark Lord, and you have found favor with one of his Death Knights. The Death Knight will then take you on as their apprentice, and you'll start learning the basics of how to Death Knight. Meanwhile, they will also put you through various tests and rituals to prepare your body for its transformation. When they believe you are ready, they will prepare your armor and fuse it to your body. In pieces, because this process is very painful and deadly, and it puts an intense amount of pressure on the body. After that, you are put through one more ritual where you are sacrificed to the Dark Lord, who then binds your soul to your corpse and raises you as a Death Knight. How do Death Knights use magic then? What makes them special? Regular magi have a limited life force that they can't normally tap into, and they pull their magic from the world around them, which allows it to be stronger or weaker in some places. They also can't use too much magic or the spell will rebound them. The source of a Death Knight's power is that same life force, but theirs regenerates over time. The mere act of living does not drain their life force, although they can be killed if they use too much of it at once. Death Knights also have the ability to meditate, which increases the regeneration of their life force, as well as deepens the well of power they can tap into. Because they use their life force to cast their spells, necromancy spells do not rebound, but they do still destabilize the magic in the area. Their regenerating life force not only makes Death Knights effectively immortal, it also allows them to heal and regenerate from most wounds. However, they cannot simultaneously regenerate both their life force and their bodies. Recovering from physical damage takes a lot of a Death Knight's stored magic, so they try to mitigate this effect by having thick sets of armor fused to their skin. The fusion process also doubles as a declaration of faith to the Dark Lord, and no self-respecting Death Knight would ever be seen without it. Also, they are compelled to do this by the Dark Lord, who can bend them to his will very easily. Are there other types of Death Knights? Yes, actually. The most common are regular Death Knights, raised and bound by the Dark Lord. Those are the ones I've been talking about this whole time. The second most common are apprentice Death Knights, although that's a relative term because most Death Knights do not take on apprentices. Apprentice Death Knights use the proto-necromancy magic that I mentioned earlier in the video. Proto-necromancy isn't actually its own class of magic, but is the apprentice learning how to use magic in the same way they would as a full Death Knight, that is, by tapping into their life force. Again, apprentice Death Knights aren't a frequent occurrence, but they're seen often enough to be considered their own type of Death Knight. A third type of Death Knight, as seen in Insurrection, are Hellborn Death Knights. These are Death Knights who have come into contact with the legendary Great One and have received a boost in their magical power. Meditating is more effective for a Hellborn, allowing them to generate at least twice as much magic in the same amount of time as a regular Death Knight. They are also able to tap into the very power of Hell itself to augment their spells, although they can't store this power the way they can with their life force. Before Insurrection, Hellborn Death Knights exist mostly as a legend, since none of them had access to Hell, and therefore could not reach the Great One. Lastly, there are Elemental Death Knights. These are Death Knights who have not been raised by the Dark Lord, but rather by the Elemental Lord of Necromancy, the regular kind, with no K. These Death Knights are not human souls who have been bound back to their bodies, but rather elemental spirits who have been bound to a human body. Owing no debt to the Dark Lord, Elemental Death Knights lack any of the ritual or reverence that regular Death Knights have and are instead very animalistic in their behaviors. They are, however, just as powerful as their human counterparts, if not more. Without a conscious leash to hold them back, they are willing to tap into and use much more magic at one time. And I think that's all I wanted to cover as far as Death Knights and their magic are concerned. There isn't much more to them, at least magically speaking anyway. So thanks for listening, and join me back on Tuesday when I finally deliver on that multiple perspectives thing and tell you about what the Prime know about Ellis the Damned. Hi, I'm Gabe, and it took me a lot longer than it should have to record this in Slate. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing so you don't miss the next one. If you want more content from me, consider following me on Twitter, where eventually I'll tweet some more. If you want to learn more about anything I'm talking about or catch some details I missed, consider buying my books. Links are in the description below. Also consider checking out the Tumblr, where I post side stories and art about the books that I can't really put anywhere else. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.